How do you measure the efficacy of video? How do you know if your video for the brand is working? What are the metrics to measure success? How do you build brand confidence? And how do you measure recall? And the real big one, does traditional media still score high on this front? These questions are going to be answered by our next panel, which is Lakshman Tari, Head Marketing and Communications of Legrand India. Can we have you on stage, please? Vishal Jacob, Vice President and Head Digital Marketing, Wavemaker. Applause, please. Thank you. Neil Pandya, Media and Digital, L'Oreal. Vyom Charaya, Head of Brand Solutions, The Viral Fever. Varun Dugirala, Co-Founder and Content Chief, The Glitch. Ramakrishnan Lakshman, Head of Digital Business, ABP News Network. And our moderator for this panel is Pankaj Krishna, Founder, Chrome Data, Analytics and Media. Thank you. Do we have everyone on stage?
Hi, good evening. So I'll need all the name tags pointing this way so we get to know each other a little better. Good evening, everyone. Hi. The chat that we had over the cup of over tea, I come from traditional media, linear TV, right? So when we see data being collated on digital platforms, Facebook, YouTube, everything that goes on has a tangible track to it, right? So you play a video, you have the number of likes, dislikes, hates, loves, shares, everything is tracking. So isn't it a perfect medium, digital? What's wrong in digital? Isn't it brilliant? So I'll leave that open to all of you, and let's start off with you, Lakshman, since I remember your name. Cheers.
Thanks. Well, I think over measurement is also a problem.
Right.
I mean, it's always happy to. I mean, if you start measuring every bits and pieces, then obviously life gets complicated. To what extent do you measure?
Yeah.
So even I come from a traditional media. So I had the digital business for one of the leading television news network, which is ABP News. We have 5 Indian language channels spread across, Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Punjabi, and Gujarati, which covers almost 60% of the market. So what we've seen is when we go onto the digital platform, the numbers obviously in the last 1 year, what we've seen is you have a huge number coming on from this particular market, online or digital. And the consumption, I mean, varies dramatically. Now, earlier what used to be Facebook a few years ago, now it's Instagram, and more than Instagram, I think it's WhatsApp.
Right.
So how really do you measure across all platforms? While it is heavily measured, for example, we do close to 1 billion views across all the platforms.
Right. Sorry to cut you, Lakshman. If you were to compare that with your core, the channels, right, and you were to give a percentage weightage to the importance of digital business, digital views, everything that comes out of digital vis-a-vis your linear TV channel, what is the weightage of percentage in terms of?
Let me give you an example.
In terms of both revenues and in terms of how important you are vis-a-vis your contemporary in linear.
So, I think advertisers are still trying to catch up into this space because things have moved so dramatically in the last couple of years that I think the advertisers have not caught up. But to give you an example, what happens is, for example, if an advertiser has taken a sponsorship on the television, he will look at my YouTube channel or my site or my Facebook and say, "Mera logo nahi laga." He's not going to look at the television channel and say, "Oh, I can't see my ad," or he will rather look at the digital medium.
Right.
So and say, my ad is not there. So why
but
is it not
digital still a free medium? So you buy a big ad, you spend like 1 crore on linear TV, and along with that you get free logo placements and everything on digital. Does that also happen? Does that happen?
So the content right now is an extension of my traditional television. We don't create separate content. So by default, a lot of in-content integration does go onto the digital free of cost.
Right.
But obviously we have separate metrics, separate advertising, digital only advertising also happening.
Got it.
But a lot of content, because it is the same, the advertiser does get a freebie.
Right. Got it. Varun, isn't it a perfect world, digital? everything is measurable, everything is trackable. There are different parameters. You might choose a different parameter, I might choose a different parameter. But if you and I sit down together and decide on a particular parameter, if a view is counted as a view once it goes continuously for 3 seconds or 5 seconds, digital is a perfect world, right? There is nothing not left to measure.
Depends on what you're creating, really. So
Right.
if you're creating an asset to build a certain amount of value, right? If you're turning around to brands and saying, I'm creating something to push for sale, I'm creating something to push for a certain end point, then you can figure measurable points. But if you're doing it to really build, let's say, brand value, you're really then focusing on what the sentiment is, right? You're then focusing on how are people receiving it, how is that helping build brand sentiment.
Right.
So yeah, the parameters are different. I think the basics haven't changed. Qualitative, quantitative metrics still exist in digital the same way it has across the board.
So is measurement a challenge? Is it a challenge?
It's a challenge if you're not clear about why you're doing something.
Right. You can pick the My Pen, you can button, so we'll keep it interactive and fun. That's okay, that's okay. You can
Measurement
button
is the
whenever.
challenge, I think. That's what I'm saying. I
Okay,
think it's
where is the
management
challenge? We fail to
is-
understand that because everything is trackable, right? It's just a different parameter that we disagree upon, right?
Okay, there are multiple things I think what you mentioned. I think when you started initially stating that you can see the likes, shares, numbers, I
Right.
think digital is not that easy. I think none of us look at those numbers and buy digital. I think
Right.
so that's one of the basic stuff I think none of us consider that as hygiene. Unified measurement of TV and digital is the biggest challenge in the country as of today. I think there's no one unified measurement which is available, which can give you a TV plus digital figure, or within digital itself, there are programmatics, but, there are multiple OTT platform guys, or, the two biggest, like, for example, take for Facebook, or Facebook is not there on DBM. Hotstar recently has been added on DBM. There are a lot of other OTT guys who are not there on DBM. So to measure unified on digital itself is also a problem.
Right.
I think gone are the days where, I think the biggest problem as per me in efficacy of video online is that a lot of decision making till date is happening on efficiency, not effectiveness. I think be it a brand guy or be it a media agency guy or a buyer, a lot of us buy stuff how efficient it is without considering how, if you're buying a cheap material or a cheap inventory, is it effective enough for your brand to be present there? I think
I would just want to add, because
Yeah,
I think
you
this
missed your
hits
turn
the
as
nail.
well, so might as well take
So
it
yeah,
from
no,
there.
and because he got
Yeah.
the point. I mean, that's the point that we try and fight for, at least whenever we have a conversation in the market. Because as he mentioned, it's not about efficiency. I had recently had a conversation with a brand where I said that, hey, they wanted 15 brand mentions in 5 episodes and all of that. And I was trying to explain that even if we are on the negotiation table and you give me 5 times more money, I'm saying that's not 5 times more value for you.
Right.
The number of times something comes, and I can quote examples of bad integrations or bad brand communications where it becomes, I mean, it's not about just awareness. It's about what is the message, the impact that the brand is landing. Sometimes too much is too much.
It's also like when we call it branded entertainment, right? We always should remember it's entertainment first and branded second. But at no point you dilute the brand as well. I think that's really the balance. I think whenever that balance doesn't happen, you either make a really long ad, or you end up making something that's entertaining, but yet the brand's kind of lost. I think that balance is what.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, but I got a different take on this actually. I think there's a good side of it, and also there's a challenge that Neil just mentioned. See, the good side of it is that because you have a lot of measurement coming to you, you've got a lot of metrics coming to you, you can course correct on a real-time basis, which you can't do otherwise with any other medium, right? You have a lot of data that's coming to you, but how you use that data and how you analyze that data for course correction and for improving your campaign on a real-time basis is something which you can do on digital. That's a good side, the plus side of it. On the other hand, though, like you said, there isn't a common currency that's required if you want to measure the effectiveness or the efficacy of video, when you look at the effectiveness side of it, basically. But then again, if you look at the latest abilities on digital, for instance, if you look at the way in which we can capture data when a person has consumed the video and how you use that data to retarget and create cohorts, that is something, again, which no other medium can actually do. Right? So if you look at the effectiveness, if you have the right infrastructure, if you have the right capabilities on board, I don't think really measurement is that big a challenge.
Right.
It starts with the brand. Brand has to be a defined objective. So for me, it's a business objective. For me, it's a brand awareness objective for me, or it's just a digital footprint, what I am going to create about it.
Right.
If you are through with your objective, if you are through with clarity, what I am going to attain that wing, it's become more easier for us. So on digital, I always feel use is generally a barter. You give me a money. As much money you can give me, as much view I can pass it on to you. But it works beyond that. So it's a generation Z what we talk about. It's more about the brand discoverability.
Right.
So I have seen your video, but who are you? So customer going to talk about you. They explore about you. What is your presence? What is your products? So you should be present in that way. And if customer searching over to you beyond your that particular video content, I
Right.
guess that's something measurability we should tap upon.
I think you mentioned a very relevant point. Sorry to cut you. I think a lot of us, which we see a kind of an issue or a concern area, is that we do not define the KPIs of a success before we get into an activity or a video or for a content creation. You need to definitely define what is your KPI of success parameters and failure parameters before you actually create something. I think you cannot create awareness content, I mean a branded awareness content, and expect the content to give you more performance. Well, end of the day, people should, if I'm expecting people to share and I'm expecting people to click on it and go and purchase my product, then the objective need to be defined very well. I think then not the agency guy or a publisher should be blamed for it. I think end of the day, it's more important. Before you get into a content creation, you need to set your objectives very clearly.
Right. So taking it from there, if you were to look at way traditional media is consumed today and the way traditional media is moving, it's all about entertainment. That's what they say, right? So if you're not entertainment, no one comes to watch TV or read a newspaper to get educated. As a result of which, the measurement goes a little haywire because news is actually entertainment in disguise. And the highest rated shows on news are practically entertainment shows that run in the afternoon across news channels, right? So as far as digital is concerned, it is all about entertainment, right? That's all it is. There is nothing beyond entertainment. And if you're not entertaining, you do not grow. Is that,
I disagree with that. I think the whole point about digital is brutal, right? Whatever you're out there, the responses people give immediately is what shows.
Right.
If
So
they
it
like
doesn't
it or don't
necessarily
like it.
have to be entertainment. As long as it's informative, that's an advantage.
Informative, entertaining. I think anything on digital is something that you consume because you want to consume it at that point, because you are actually going to find it and you're going to watch that, which means that you need to tick off all the boxes of who you want to target. I think that's really important. Sometimes having too wide a reach on digital is a bad idea. Having your focus on who your primary target audience is and why you're creating it for them is important from a brand perspective. I think from an entertainment perspective, that can be as wide as it can be. But I would say from a brand perspective.
I agree. So brands have tonalities, and they're very, whenever we work with brands, they have certain guardrails around which you have to function if you're working with a particular brand. But having said that, as a creator, there is a wide spectrum. So for us, I mean, a family show works as well on digital as a show which has got all the popular lingo and curse words. So there's no fixed formula. It's just that different cohorts sort of consume different kind of content, and you could be a part of multiple cohorts also. You might like this and that as well.
So Pradeep, I do take this as a journey of a marketing. So when we started with the B2B, so earlier when it started a marketing, B2B marketing, we become a B2C marketing. And somehow now we are entering to a world which is B2Me, which is very personalized. So
B2B?
B2Me.
Right.
It's a personalized marketing. So as an individual person, I can be a consumption. So even if you see your TV media is getting digitalized. So earlier I used to sit at home, watch the Saas Bahu at 7 o'clock, but now it's a flexibility for me. It's available through my one app, but it's depend on me. I want to consume content as a news and affairs. I want to content only an entertainment industry, but it's getting personalized, and that's why it's getting more challenging because simultaneously you are attending not just a group of people, but the individual person.
Right.
So I would just disagree a bit over here because what we are seeing is that there's a lot of consumption in hard news.
Right.
So while entertainment, yes, it does work, but primarily if you see on messaging platforms and social media, it's only news.
Yeah, so Lakshman, to add to what I said, the reason why entertainment scores highest on news is because the measure mechanism is such. The measurement mechanism only gets triggered and the panel itself is a panel which is more representative of entertainment, right? So in the case of digital, right, so we see a lot of news that goes through on WhatsApp, anything happens on different forms, right? So the point I was trying to make is that it is not necessarily limited to entertainment. Whereas in the traditional form, news tends to get skewed towards entertainment because the measurement gets reflected only when it's entertainment. And that's where the revenues come in. So that is something that is not plaguing digital, right? So if I want to send out a message which is got to do with the pollution levels going up in Delhi, I can very well craft a creative and pass this message, right? True. Whereas in the case of traditional media, it gets more challenging. As long as it is not entertaining, it does not have an entertainment value, it is difficult to communicate.
Yeah, I kind of
right?
agree to you on that, because I'll tell you why. We've done a study, okay? This was a very interesting study, and I must talk about it. Because this was a study done for one of our brands where we used neuroscience, okay? And we looked at creating a piece of content which is very entertaining, like you said,
right.
and one piece of content which is very informative. The same message, exactly the same message going out in two different ways. And the entertaining content really engaged the user, and the informative content also did engage the user. And if you look at the levels of excitement as well as the levels of attention were pretty much the same. But the interesting part over here, the entertaining content, the brand recall was actually quite low. And the informative content, the recall was actually quite high. So, I mean, this is just a one-off case, but it...
And that's got to do a function of involvement, because
I think
informative...
it's got to do the function of the way the brand is actually is integrated within the message of the content of the creative.
Right.
But it will be stereotypical to say that therefore the entertainment content doesn't work. I mean, I don't think that's true either.
Right.
Yeah, so...
So I
Maybe
think
the news
I
has
think
become entertainment.
I would
Absolutely.
have to fundamentally disagree.
I think
with
what
I'll have to fundamentally...
fundamentally disagree with that because
Okay.
of the
I'm
fact
just
that I
saying
represent
that
TV. But
if you say that entertainment content alone is not going to work on digital, then
no,
I think...
I'm saying that the
Okay.
studies, I mean, that's just one study is
That's
all I'm
one
saying.
study,
And
yeah.
I don't want to compare, because all I'm saying is that it depends. I mean, there are enough. I'm sure there are 20,000 stories of Osho, but everyone knows Wild Wild Country. Something was different about it. Yeah. So, and it was informative for people who want to know his story or whatever. So the point is that it doesn't matter whether it's informative. Why can't informative be entertaining? We were just discussing today, TED Talks, who would have thought is the format. Someone's coming and telling their story, what's interesting about it. But they created a content story out of it. So,
But if you're going with the hypothesis that only entertainment content will work,
no,
then that's wrong. is what
I'm
trying
saying
to
that
say.
the comparison doesn't hold because depends again on the objective.
Yeah,
so tripling with Tiago,
Yeah, so
was it entertaining? Was it informative?
The same thing. What I'm trying to say is essentially that if you go in with the hypothesis that only entertainment content will work on digital, that's not true.
I think the point is more
Everything will
engaging.
work.
Both of you are saying the same thing.
I think we are on the same page.
So gentlemen,
I
sorry.
think what you're trying to say is the tonality of content.
Yeah, of course. I think I was about to come to power drift for automobiles.
Unboxing.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is basically tonality of how content is delivered. So let me give you an example. So I work in the language space, so India is not really a homogeneous country. For example, a same piece of content will be delivered differently in Hindi.
Absolutely.
If you look at Bengal and even Maharashtra, in Marathi, the content delivery is much more sober.
Right.
So it also varies from market to market, language to language, as to how do you deliver content, and also depends on the audience, how do they want the content to be presented.
Right.
So it's not really homogeneous. Now that when you start seeing a lot of local language, Indian language users coming on board, you'll also see that the content creation formats will also change.
Right.
I think if you look at the whole digital landscape, right, what it's really done is it's taken the fact that there are brands and there are platforms and there are creators, and we've said that, okay, fine, forget the fact that something is digital, something is television, something is print, but say that you can now play everywhere.
Right.
I think that's where the good part lies, is the fact that you can play across mediums and you create stuff that can work across pieces. I mean, the fact that TV have had their own platform, now they're also on Netflix with, it shows the fact, and the fact that BuzzFeed as a publisher is now creating long format shows the fact that the beauty of digital is that you can do whatever you feel will work.
Absolutely, and anyone can be on digital. There's no huge
Only
100
the
crore
quality
investment
parameters slowly getting
to put
higher
up a
and
video
higher.
and upload it
And
up,
the other
right?
thing is that, as you were saying, that it is brutally honest. I mean, at the end of the day, you can put in all your effort into creating something, and it might just not work because people can click something else immediately. There's no passive viewing on digital. TV can still have passive viewing. It's still on your mobile phone.
I think on multiple points on entertaining and informative, I think on your point, apart from not entertaining content, for us, like makeup content, how to do videos and how to color your hair works a lot, because end of the day, it's targeting, it's informative, and it is where we are educating our consumers to that extent. I think we all of us majorly talk about measuring the video efficacy after the video has been made. I think we need to really focus more before making the content. I think there is a framework which we believe in that framework really, called ABCD. And like you attract initial attention in the start, whatever content you're making, be it a familiar face, be it emotions, be it any XYZ, you subtly put your brand. You don't force fit your brand in the content. Ideally, it's more naturally coming, meaningfully coming, rather than being on the face. You connect to the audience either in personalized way where you do one-on-one targeting or XYZ other things, and you direct them what to do. End of the day, you don't expect the consumer to watch your content and say, okay, fine, who are you? I think you want him to do something after what you're doing. So you direct the consumer either to watch new videos, either to go on your website and watch more products. I think that's where the framework is required more to focus. And then you go out, make a content basis that, and then measure the efficacy after that.
Absolutely.
And maybe to support to your points, you must be mentioning about the brand integration. So brand integration is majorly possible when it goes to entertainment industry.
Right.
But when it comes to news and current affairs, the integration doesn't work. It's generally a sponsorship, and then it becomes a conscious decision where to support or not to support. Because for a brand, it becomes a difficult decision when it comes to a news and affairs stuff.
Right. Right. So that's a lot of content, a lot of videos that are getting uploaded, a lot of content that is being generated. I was going through a forward which says there are 300 hours of video uploaded on YouTube every minute, right? So you guys would know better if that's a fake news or a right news. Okay, so that's almost every second. That makes it even more. 300 hours of video uploaded almost every second across the globe. That's an obscene amounts of video. What happens to all this video? Who consumes all of that, right? So a lot of segmentation, a lot of what you said.
So it all depends on who you're talking about. Like for instance, I know for a fact there was a study to figure out why the largest amounts of images of flowers and good morning messages originate in India.
Why?
It's because we share that on family WhatsApp groups every day.
How do you block them? You want to tell that? How do you block it?
So it's true. There's actually been a study to figure out, there's a global study to figure out why we as Indians consume the largest amount of floral imagery and good morning messages.
Wow.
So I'm just saying that it depends on who the audience is, right? I mean, that's what the audience
So there's an
wants.
audience for everything, right? So
It's also an irony where Viduli guy presented, we were talking outside that some 400 crores of branded content is as of today. I think if 3 hours per second is uploaded, I don't know where branded content, from the 13,000 digital spends, there's only 400 crore branded content.
Right.
So there's a long way to go into branded content space.
So now there's a lot of these small or rather big, because they've got millions of views. There are these comedy clubs, these small things that are popping up all across social media, and each video of them is a clip, like a 10-minute clip from a Bollywood movie, a comedy scene, which gets edited, uploaded, and it attracts 1 million, 2 million views, right? Is that legal? If you don't know the answer, that's fine. So I'll come to the second one. I'll tell you why I asked that question, because I, as an individual sitting in a garage, can pull out content which I don't own. It's a Bollywood movie.
So you can
monetize I put it on a platform which I don't own, I have no rights to, and I get 1.4 million views, which I eventually monetize. Can I monetize that?
You can't monetize.
No, it's not
You can't
legal.
monetize that. So what's the model? What's the model of putting all these videos on? Isn't that further cluttering and adding to those 300 hours of content? Why would someone do that? Does it make sense? Eventually, everyone has to have
one is the person can build a huge fan following. Second is, so what happens is the content owner can decide either, so on a platform like YouTube or Facebook, content owner can decide either I take it down or I can monetize it.
Right.
While it is being uploaded by someone else. So
Right.
it's completely the content owner's call.
Right.
And the person who's uploading it, probably he gets popular, and if he's editing it and
Right.
Pradesh, so, it's not similar. In TV industry, there used to be a local channels or a cable operator who used to store this content
that still
from
runs in analog. You still
channels,
have
but
pirated
they
movies
for a longer period of time.
They make the maximum money. They get the maximum. The pirated local cable channel ends up getting the maximum viewership, and they get a lot of retail advertising where they make the money, right? So important point that you brought up on data measurement, right? Frauds in data measurement. That seems to be something very important today, right? So how do you put checks and balances to avoid those frauds, which are a menace now, right? So you want to start off from that side?
Sure. I can take that question. I mean, if you look at it, right, I mean, it's interesting because of the $100 that you actually spend on media, a good amount of 10% of that now is going into actually measuring fraud, right? Because there are companies like Moat, Integral Ad Science, Double Verify, all of them, their job is to kind of look at the views that are coming on a video to see whether it's actually being viewed by a human or is being viewed by a bot. And we've had multiple instances where a lot of our brands, for instance, who've advertised on, I'd say, some of the top OTT players in this country, and we've found that there's a discrepancy in terms of the number of views that we've got from the publisher versus the number of views that we've actually tracked on, on ad servers. And this could range close to about 30 to 40%. So it's unfortunate, but it's true that there is a problem, and I think we need to deal with it when we have clients as well as agency partners coming together to ensure that tools and infrastructures are put in place to kind of ensure that these fraudulent mechanisms are tracked and addressed.
I think that is also one of the point that 60 to 70% of every brand's advertising money is going into videos specifically. That's the larger, how big video is for any of the advertiser. The point, lot of people have, consolidation of spends going only to.
Sorry, I didn't get it. So why is it going to video if there are frauds in digital measurement?
No, so I'm coming to your point on that one. So 60%, the importance of fraud is because we are spending 60% of my spend on video. How I control doing fraud is because I do it with multi-partners like MNCs like Google, Facebook, who assure us in return that something fraud and all is restricted to the minimum level. If we start getting more confidence from publishers outside all of this thing, where fraud levels are really lower, this monies can be spread across a lot of OTT platforms.
Right.
That's where measurement and that's where brand safety comes into importance a lot.
Right. So you said some 10% goes into tracking and saving. That's a huge sum of money going into just trying to correct.
Yeah, it not necessarily 10%, but depends on the number of levels of, if you want to track brand safety, you want to track viewability, you want to track bots. It depends on the level at which you want to go to. It could go anywhere from between 2% to 10%, depending on.
Right.
Too much, this is the problem of too much measurement. Too much measurement also gives you too many objectives. Too many objectives also gives you too many frauds. For example, if a brand marketer decides, I want to be number one on Facebook in terms of highest number of fans, you'll probably have a bot form which will get you fans. I want a lot of comments, you'll probably have another bot form giving you a lot of comments. So, I mean, it's a cat and mouse game which, while on the one hand, your objectives keep increasing, and on the other side, you'll have all these fraud happening, so obviously you'll need checks and balances, so that's why your cost will keep going up.
Absolutely.
I think any form of measurement will, or any form of metrics will have some level of stuff that falls through, right? I think what's important is to look at stuff and saying, okay, fine, what are we trying to achieve with every piece that we're kind of creating out there? Like he said, 60% is spent on video, but also the fact is it really reaching the right audience is one thing. Also, is it getting the right sentiment out there? Is the responses the right kind that you want, right? And
right.
I think over time, and that's something you got to do across media. So you're learning all the time. I think the platforms are learning over time because the platforms themselves that sometimes have metrics issues which are quite prominently out there over the last couple of years,
right.
Where they've realized that their own measurements have been off. So
right.
I think that's a iterative process that you'll go through. But at the end of the day, what is your long-term goal and short-term goals is what's important.
Right.
Long-term, what do you want your brand's values to be in people's minds, and what value do you want to give your consumers and get as well? I think as long as you focus on those two pieces, the value and values, I think you're fine.
Absolutely.
From
right.
brand side, it's more of it's an agency what we now started appointing audit agency to just check a views which is coming out right or not. But for me, for a brand should think about consciously how much they are spending and how much their expectation. There should not be a gap between your expectation and the spend. It should be hand in hand. And
right.
also how much your content is impacting, how much organically you are growing apart from your inorganic or the paid views for it.
Right. So right. So I was chatting up with this friend
I would
of
just,
mine.
I would just want to add, because this whole, a lot of the discussion that we're having is around views.
Right.
At least in our experience, I mean, views is just a starting point, and this is something that we discuss with brands a lot. When brands say how many views will you get, my typical answer is how many views do you want? Because it's a function of one, my organic, the fan following that the channel holds will reach a certain level of people and XYZ views. But beyond that, it's a function of investments, right? So it doesn't stop there if I'm making an impactful campaign
right.
with the brand. But the efficacy is not limited to views.
Right.
We need to have very clear objectives when we are starting, and those can't be performance objectives.
Right.
When you're doing video content marketing, because I'm not going to deliver as a creator a click-through rate which is equal to an Instagram campaign that the brand's performance marketing team is running. So the objectives have to be much more cleanly defined. At the end of this whole story, let's say if you're talking about 5 episodes, or if you're talking about, if someone's coming to me with one Diwali video, the end efficacy of that is you wished happy Diwali, by the way. Because, I mean, what will you do with one video? It's very rare that one video becomes, remembered for 10 years. But when you do a web series, it gets remembered for, let's say, 5 years. When you do a non-fiction, sometimes it becomes like, whatever, becomes a part of pop culture. So that is the point that needs to be clarified. Views, frankly, you'll have 30%, 40%, you're saying there's a gap, there'll be 10 measurements. Ultimately, if the brand's objectives aren't met, they'll not come back to you even if you delivered the views. And all of them were correct.
Right.
But I agree to your point, but I think recently YouTube launched, I think you would answer it better, launched YouTube for performance. I think that's where it goes from an objective of brands started looking performance from video and not what you're actually saying in terms of awareness or brand consideration, movability, the needle movement on that. People have started, YouTube launched a product called YouTube Performance. So I think somewhere down the run, either a publisher is promoting that performance can also be delivered through videos,
and
or
all the e-commerce clients also have now started using videos. Why do they do that? Because they can connect with audiences through the videos, but there's a whole lot of stuff as far as data is concerned. Every person who views the content, you have data of the number of people who use the video, who consume the content. You can retarget them later.
Let me, so
Yeah,
I'll
so
come
you
to
can
this.
actually
So let me clarify myself.
You
Let
can
me
drive
clarify.
performance.
If a brand comes to me and says that I only want to target 25 to 33-year-olds in Gurgaon and Meerut, content won't do that for you specifically.
trust me, brand will not come to you doing that because the objective of your platform will be far different from an objective of platform advertising on a YouTube.
So then my point is that the efficiency or typical ROI, investment to मेरे को content बनाना है तो लेना पड़ेगा ना पैसा. That efficiency you'll never get from a content because organically it will spread outside your target audiences. That's the point. So it's
Okay, so my turn. Okay, so I was chatting up with a friend of mine who heads the media for Dabur. I don't know if you know Rajiv. And we had this other show that we do. And I asked him that, listen, everyone's talking about digital, right? And you still seem to be so active on traditional. And he gave a very valid logic to that. So when it comes to still traditional media, conventional television, newspapers, radio, you've got an obscenely high reach. So television itself is at about some 190 million, multiplied with an average of 5 people per home. That's almost 800 million. That's some 60% of the country's population. When do you see, and again, this is pretty cliche, we read this all over, traditional media will cease to exist and digital media will no longer be digital, it'll just be media. Do you think that's going to happen? And it's going to happen in the near future? More so since this entire backbone of digital is broadband, connectivity, internet, and all of that is falling in place with huge investments from different sectors. So this thing that we talk about, traditional digital media will no longer be digital media, it will be media, right? When do you see that happening, if you see that happening at all?
I think everything is digital now.
Right.
In the pure context of what we create now.
Newspapers. Right? It's burning paper, burning trees, but every morning, every house still gets a newspaper. Right? Radio, you're still banking, it is not OTT, right? So radio, still you go through a channel, you pay hundreds of crores of license fee. Everything has an intermediary, what is working right? Digital is the only thing which goes direct, right? So when do you think that takes over? It sounds like a no-brainer.
No, what I was trying to say was the fact that everything is digital in the pure sense of when we create something, we want it across platforms now, right? Which pretty much means I don't think it's one or the other. I think both will exist, but just that they will keep evolving and kind of merging together is what the future is. The future is not one or the other.
They both exist. So in like 5 years from now, is it a 50-50 market share? Is that a fair estimate? No. What do you think? What's a fair estimate in 5 years from today?
Digital and TV 5 years down the run, 50-50.
I'm saying traditional would include television, print,
I think
radio, everything traditional.
No. Print today, if you talk about print today is the second biggest.
It is.
It is the second biggest after outside television. I don't see
impact.
5 years down the run, offline to online will become 50-50.
What's that number?
This number is growing. If you see digital is growing year on year at 30%.
Let's put a percentage. So between digital, everything on digital on one side and everything on traditional. So in 5 years from now, it's a 70-30?
So right now in the US, it is 40% digital. In the UK,
it's a selfish question because a lot of people are investing and a lot of people asking where to invest. So once you have a fair idea of that number, We take
I'll
a
tell
better
you,
bet.
I'll tell you,
Mukesh
the number.
Ambani will
Just-
able to
just-
Sorry?
answer that because
No,
till
Mukesh,
last,
okay, carry on. Huh.
till last mile, whenever the country is going to achieve the digital stability, now,
Yeah.
so the data access, the 4G or 5G access which you are talking about, till last month, till last mile, if you are able to achieve in next 5 years, maybe then 5 years.
So what is
Yes,
that
I
number?
think-
What is that ratio? Where do you see that? Can you put a number to it?
Difficult to predict.
Vis-a-vis.
And
It's
as
too
of today,
difficult.
digital is 20, and I mean 2021 compared to balance
Traditional. So it's a
17, 80,
20-80.
tradition. It's 20-80.
So isn't it a fair
5
estimate
years
that
down the
20
run,
goes
it
to
might
50?
go to a 25, 26%. I don't see it
And
going
traditional
50, 50
continues at
so
about
soon
70,
as of-
75%. What do you think? Same number.
Okay, can I just explain this for a second? Just
Yes.
hear me out, okay? Yesterday, right, we were doing a plan for one of our clients. And 6 months back, exactly the same audience, I'm talking about metros, where all the marketing dollars are. We're talking about the metros, 18 to 34, SCCAP. Right? That's where you put your marketing dollars, right? Your television was the primary, had about 156 billion, and your digital, if you look at Facebook or YouTube, basically was around 120 odd million. Today,
Right.
if I look at it, basically when we did the analysis, we saw that Facebook has overtaken television in terms of
Right.
absolute reach.
Right.
So while digital was playing a support role for television, right? I'm talking about this is data just fresh out of the oven, right?
Right.
But when digital was playing a support role for television, today digital has gone above that. Now the question over here is that is therefore digital playing a lead role over here, or is television playing a role? So to answer your question, I think we've already reached that point. We've
Right.
already reached that point where I think
So digital is probably eating more out of the print revenues, right? Television still, in absolute terms,
Yeah, in
television
terms
is
of the
growing, print is growing. In relative terms, television is still growing in relative terms.
Because every TV network
Print
also
is
playing the
declining.
digital
yeah,
game.
digital
right?
Print
is,
is declining
digital
on
is
the-
growing at 30%.
Sorry?
Digital is growing at 30%.
That's right.
I think everything is growing. Print is growing at 3 to 4%, whereas
So
rest
are
of
we,
other things
so are
is
we as a country,
exactly,
currently at
yeah.
135 crores, right? So we're all growing. So I think that's it. Time's up. So you wanna have questions? Anyone questions from the audience on, besides Anil Vanwari, anyone else has questions? No, Anil is not allowed to ask questions. No. Anyone else has questions? So we'll come to you, Anil. Anyone has any questions? Okay, give Anil a mic. Finally, we reverse roles.
So, is time spent going to be relevant? Is engagement going to be relevant on video? Especially in the area of branded content, branded videos. I think time spent is something that managers would like to see, though there would be a call to action. In the case of Myntra, driving traffic to the website, possibly, making the customer buy something. But is time spent, as far as your brand partners are concerned, Vyom, is that a good metric?
Yeah, so I was, when I was saying
Because
that
that's not
views-
coming through here.
Yeah, when I was saying that views is just the beginning, I think that's what I was talking about. A lot of discussions happen with brands when they ask a question which is quite surprising even today, is that, is the brand going to be there in the first 10 seconds? Why does it matter? It matters because in their mind they're thinking 6-second bumpers and people will skip. But what we're talking about is someone coming to watch something. So it doesn't matter. It just matters at what point is your brand coming into the story and what role is it playing. So to your question, time spent matters because whether people are able to reach that point, whether that message gets landed, yes, it matters. Engagement, also, again, a lot of brands start questioning. I mean, after watching a content, will you talk about a brand if you are a viewer? Very few people will, right? So you can't suddenly change consumer behavior. When brands come and tell me why are people not visiting my website, I tell them that they're not visiting my website also. I mean, half of my content is on YouTube, they're watching it on YouTube. If I'm putting something on Play, I have to go the extra mile and call them in by putting teasers and all of that. So why does a brand want someone to visit their website to do something? Can I solve for that same thing in some other manner? If yes, and what are those other manners? An Instagram story poll. Let's say you're looking for this dress is better, that dress is better. For that, I can't call you to my website and do something. I can just put an Instagram story poll and use my community. So what brands need to, at least, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, understand where the consumer is, what is that guy doing? The world is lazy today. You just scroll up, you like, without reading statuses, we like statuses. All of us do that. The world is super lazy right now. So why make someone work hard? Let's try and solve for the same things using the right sort of metrics. That's what we try and talk to brands about.
So what are the metrics you're quoting? What are the metrics RK is quoting? What are the metrics Glitch and the rest of the guys are buying?
So I think it varies from platform to platform. Also from an advertiser perspective, and also you look at how the consumer behaves. So what we've seen is we've created content for Instagram. We've even created wine content, which is 6-second videos. We create content on YouTube and Facebook. What we've seen is on Instagram, the shortest possible video works. And of course, you also have vertical videos over there. On YouTube, it's obviously long form content which works. Now, what is it? Now, that's the consumer behavior. Now, how do you address, as an advertiser, how do you address that consumer behavior? For example, I have made a purchase on Instagram after seeing a video on my timeline. Anecdotal evidence. You see the kind of videos that people share and watch on WhatsApp. I mean, people watch long form videos also, people even watch some 30-second videos. So it all depends on the content. It all also depends on how the advertiser wants to use the content. So to give you an example, what I bought on Instagram was a reversible umbrella. And it was a pretty cute video. And I bought it from an unknown e-commerce site. Never even heard of it. And it got delivered on time.
For us, it really varies, right? I think we look at a piece of content as a piece of content, and we look at it saying, what does it really want to achieve? If I give an example of a piece which we had done for Netflix some time back, which was the Radhika Apte film that kind of came out, right? For us, some people really engaged with it because it was exciting and they engaged with that. But I think a lot of people also engaged enough with a response we gave to a post Zomato put up about something we had done, right? It totally depends. And I think we look at it at the end of the day saying, what is the consumer feeling after watching it? We really track that. Because every other metric pales in comparison, because you're making them feel something, and then they're stuck in their head. You're not going to go away. That's in the case of pushing your values, right? But in many cases, you're also pushing for sale. I think we strongly believe digital is one of the only mediums that can really make you buy something. So it doesn't matter if you've seen the entire video, or if you saw the first 5 seconds, or if you just scroll through it on mute, but you still went and bought it. So that's why I think time spent really doesn't really matter, as long as, on the sale part, if you bought it, great. I mean, then I didn't even need a second.
Looking at click-through rates and call to action.
Yeah, we look at it totally as individual pieces of content, what works.
Okay.
Right. Anyone has more questions besides Anil Vanwari?
Each of finished from all of us, I think. Then the next question goes. I think it lastly depends upon the brand objective. I think my objective is recall, then a 6-second bumpers for work for me. And I do not, my objective for branded content is never recall. It's more about consideration movement, more about moving the needle into awareness, consideration, likability. And all of these things, for branded content, we do largely brand lift surveys or a third-party survey, which helps us identify controlled versus exposed audience, and is my mind measures moving for that. I think these are the only measurement efficacy which are left for brands like us to measure it is working or not.
So if you're tracking...
Anil is not doing a Q&A, he's doing an interrogation right now. Anil is not asking a question, he's doing an interrogation. एक panelist से पूछ.
समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं थोड़ा.
मेरा
दिमाग कच्चा है.
It's a very straightforward thing, just as Neil said, basically. There's a marketing funnel that's there. If your objective is to awareness, you have to reach the person. Without reaching the person, obviously you can't do anything, right? So you have to reach the person. If your objective is to increase consideration or preference for the brand, you have to ensure that the video does spark some kind of conversation. People have to engage with the brand. If your objective is write down conversions or all the way down to sales, then the video needs to collect enough data so that you can remarket the person at some point in time when it's interested in that in a piece of content and buy. So depending on your objective, just like Neil said, you kind of need to put the right measures in place.
Yeah, again, I like to same stuff we have to repeat for. See, if it is about the awareness part, if you are looking for from the brand, then there is a brand lift study, and there is a lot of technical, these expert tools are making up to check your things are really working or not. But starting off the conversation only, I have mentioned that you should go beyond that. You should check about your brand, mention about entire digital universe, how it is getting, and create attraction for it. Secondly, if you have clearly a business objective, then you have a clear goal towards it. So if I want to take a leads of a 200 door phone which I am selling on the digital platform, then my objective is clear. So my video is going, the content development till a media plan will work accordingly to achieve that goal.
So I have a question, for you. How did the Good Vibes do for you, and what was the thought behind that? Because you were a brand doing a web series.
So Good Vibes was, so before 2 years, you must have seen the Legros presence. We were actually in the age of building up new websites, new e-catalog. And this year, we thought now we have enough presence which is going on the digital platform. So it's definitely a right time to go beyond, to touch base with the customer, which is young in the nature, which is a particular category audience, people like architects, interior designer, is some extent we are through for it, but the new generation.
That was accidental.
So
the architects
doesn't go and ask for it. That's one. But secondly, for Allegro, it's not just a one product business. We don't make only a switches and socket. It's a door, phones. So it's a complete product family which we wanted to talk to our customer, and we thought a web series is a first medium for it. So
will you measure the efficacy of it later on?
we are working on it, but the efficacy meters. So we have got a number. So 10 million views. Yes, we have achieved the 10 million views platform for it. But it's effectively triggered to a digital consumer. Yes, the analysis is going on, and which is a further to the buyout ratio. Yeah.
Any more questions? Since there are no questions, I'll wrap up with the last question. So you're in the business of publishing white papers, right? It's a B2B business. The target audience for that business, for those white papers, is a set of 1,000 CXOs. So there are these 1,000 CEOs, chief research officers, marketing officers, whom you need to target, right? Can we be so specific to hit those 1,000 people and with a brilliant frequency? So anyone can take that question for me. So we need to target those 1,000 people, spread across maybe some 3 industries, spread across probably 6 metros of India, all skewed probably towards the television and print and radio industry.
So on TVF, no.
And what's the cheapest way to do it? No, on
TVF,
digital,
no.
right? So
No,
TV
so
is
I
a
was
huge
recently
spillover.
having a very, very interesting chat with someone at LinkedIn. They are doing something on these lines. So
you will target specifically those 1,000 people?
Yes.
So LinkedIn
yes.
can do that because it's got the profiling of each of them.
Yes. So,
right,
so a
okay.
platform where all of these guys are already there.
Right.
And LinkedIn seems to be the more appropriate one. I mean, I'm sure they'll be on Facebook as well, but LinkedIn is meant for that. They have some offering already of this style. So yes, magazines also.
And you can go to LinkedIn and tell them to hammer the same guy again and again every time he logs on to LinkedIn.
So just to add on to what he's saying, so LinkedIn's a client of ours and we actually work on this with them consistently. And the fact is that as a platform, when you look at LinkedIn, it's very different from every other social platform, right? Because what you see on LinkedIn, you actually take a lot more seriously, especially because it's a professional platform. So you won't put anything random on LinkedIn is the perception, right? Which then means that if you're targeting the CXOs, then what you put up there, as long as it's good content and you target them right, the tendency will be to click on it and actually...
LinkedIn would reserve a right to filter off that kind of an information, right? As long as the ad is white papers, it's intelligent, they'll put it up. But if you're selling an agarbatti, they might say, doesn't work for us. Bro,
no,
right?
I mean, it totally depends.
They would probably filter it off, right? They won't target a CXO with a new brand of agarbatti every evening he logs on, right? They won't do that.
I mean, if someone's targeting a CXO with a new brand of agarbatti, they're kind of wasting their money as well.
Right,
So I
absolutely.
guess that's like...
Absolutely.
LinkedIn
I think
technically can do it, but they wouldn't because, I mean...
Absolutely. It doesn't work for the agarbatti wala, doesn't work for the brand.
The platform will always have to be true
CXO as
well. Platform will have to be true to the user, ultimately. See, if the CXO sees the ad and goes off, that's a bigger loss for...
Right, and it'll block the ad. So it works badly on the platform as well.
I mean,
so the platform is measurable enough. It is smart enough.
Unless you're targeting a CXO of a company which has multiple dealerships and you're saying that this is the agarbatti you need to use in each of your dealerships during festive season, then that's really smart targeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the day LinkedIn gets agarbatti client on LinkedIn, I think the sales team needs a slow clap.
Thank you. I think let's wrap up on that. Yeah, we saw the Budweiser cans moving in, so we've been pretty attentive as well. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, everyone, for having us over. I think it was a brilliant session, very informative. And let's all connect over a drink after that. Thank you, gentlemen.
One last thing, the measurement should not be the last session of the day, actually. It's a very important thing.
The measurement is going to be the next session. So we'll connect. Thank you, guys.